traveled all over the world wrestling, and I know you've probably had some hairy travel experiences, especially not the big international jets from Tokyo to Florida or wherever, but to some of the smaller planes. And I know you've flown on private planes. You've had family members. Your Uncle Lester used to fly guys around. What are some of your hairier travel experiences?
Oh, well, that's a great one, Jim. Lester, let's just talk about Lester, okay? I've had experiences with Ron Wright, and I've flown in planes with guys that you got to be a nut to get on that plane, you know. But Lester was a great pilot. Lester Welch, that's my grandfather's brother, Lester. He had a King Air. He had a nice airplane, and he used to fly back in the early 70s. In 1970, when I went to Florida and started working, used to work in San Juan every other Saturday night in Puerto Rico. And then you worked in the Bahamas. We've already talked about the Bahamas, right? I mean, that's an experience.
Yeah, you worked there until Dusty and Murdoch killed it.
They killed the town. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you how we killed the airplane. You know, I mean, we did the same thing with the airplane, right? Because what happened is not everybody could fly there on that King Air. It only held about 8 people, and it had no bathroom. You're flying in one leg of the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is from Miami to Puerto Rico, from Puerto Rico north to Bermuda, and from Bermuda back to Miami. That's that big area of water in which so many planes have disappeared. So one leg of that Bermuda Triangle is from Miami to Puerto Rico. And we would fly. I was young, so I got on Lester's plane every time. I had no choice. Jack Briscoe flew commercial. And Dusty and Murdoch flew commercial, and I spent 7 hours on that plane with no bathroom to get from Fort Lauderdale, where we worked on Friday nights, to San Juan on Saturday on Lester's plane. And there was always pretty much the same crew on Lester's plane because we were the young guys, and we didn't have any rank, man. So we got stuck on Lester's plane.
And of course, Lester was part of the office, so he's probably want to keep expenses down, right?
Oh yeah, that was the whole deal. I mean, you know, they had to use his plane because it was a hell of a lot less expensive than flying the whole crew commercial. So he would do things like Lester he was a hell of a pilot. I have to give him that. And he was very soft-spoken. He never talked. He was like a robot on the plane. One time we fly sometimes from San Juan into the Bahamas, into Freeport, where we would wrestle on Sundays. And Lester we'd be leaving the San Juan at midnight or whatever, and we'd fly till 3 in the morning, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And Lester would go to sleep. He's the guy flying the plane, right? And when he went to sleep, everybody else got up. Man, you know, and you'd look up there and Lester.
What did you say? Just wake me up if anything happens?
Yeah. I mean, he never said that. I mean, you know, it wasn't like an airline pilot when they got a problem. He goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but we have a problem with our landing gear." With Lester, it was never nothing. He didn't open his mouth. So one of these trips back between San Juan and back into the Bahamas, Lester goes to sleep. It's like 2 in the morning, and his head nods off, and we sleep till I look up there, and then everybody else looks up there, and they're like, "God dang, Lester's asleep, man. You know, who's flying the plane?" Well, it's on autopilot, right? But so Lester's got his head all down there, and all of a sudden the plane starts going. It's a problem, right? I mean, it's like something's happening and it ain't good. And then it noses over. Here we go, right? So we all scream, "Lester, Lester, Lester." And he just raises his head real slow. He looks back there at us like he's pissed at us, you know, like, "Well, you woke me up, bitches." And he reaches down there and he flips on the auxiliary tank. Okay, so and then he goes back to sleep, and the plane's still nosediving. He just puts his head back down. He goes back to sleep, and the plane's still going. We're still going down. It's like, "Hey, dang, wait a minute," you know. and then it goes, and it kind of catches the gas gets back into the engine, and then it slowly climbs back. So that's Lester's MO. I mean, he don't get excited. He's just low key, So we make a trip, one of these trips. There we have these things that happen there. He's having problems with his plane on a pretty much regular basis.
Oh, got problems with the plane, not something here.
Yeah, because he's been there. He's been traveling and using his plane a significant amount. I'm running a lot of hours on it, but he has these little problems with it all the time, and it's one little thing after another. So one of these trips we're making from Fort Lauderdale to San Juan, and we're in the afternoon, say 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, something like that. I'm sitting on the left-hand side of the plane, and there's about 8 of us on there. We're overloaded. We got 50-pound bags each, and we all weigh 300 pounds or 280 pounds, right? And we're 8 of us on the little damn King Air that's made for 6, right? I mean, it's like we're asking to die, one of those deals, And there's Curtis Smith on there, and Rocky Smith, who's used to be the Old Infernos. J.C. Dykes is on there. Bob Roop's on there. Roy Lee, Lester's son, is on there. And we've been flying for several hours now. And I look out the left engine. I'm on the left-hand side of the plane, and the engine is becoming oily, the wing and everything, And I look out there, and that ain't good. This ain't good, I mean, what the hell is going on over there? So we keep flying. Lester doesn't say anything. We fly for probably another 30 minutes. I'm looking out there now. I nudge whoever's sitting next to me, and I look, hey, check that out. Now the engine is getting black. I mean, there's an oil problem, some kind, right? And so I'm thinking, what in the hell? Don't he say something to somebody? Is something wrong here or whatever? So finally, Lester's never spoken on any trip, these 7-hour flights. He's never opened his mouth, and he turns his head around and he goes, hey, Roy, break out that life raft out. That's his first words out of his mouth. I mean, there's no like, hey, we're having problems or whatever's going on, It's like, Roy, break out that life raft. And so we're playing cards, got a little card table there between us, and everybody looks at each other like, what did he say? Did he really just say what I thought he said? We're all like whispering to each other, like, did he say break out the life raft? So finally, one of us goes, hey, what's wrong, Lester? And he goes, we're losing the oil pressure in the left engine. So that's all he says. And then we look out there, and then everybody looks. Now the engine is all black. I mean, we got a real problem. And so we fly for maybe 20 minutes. And so I ask him, I finally get guts enough. I say, if we lose this engine, can we fly on one engine? There's a long pause, right? He don't never turn around. He just keeps looking forward. After about 30-second pause, he goes, no. Can't fly one engine, right? It's like, oh, wow. So we're in the Devil's Triangle. There's nothing around but little tiny islands, if you see one, and most of it is just water. There's no place to land. It's starting to get dark. And the engine now and the part of the wing is all black. And it's like, so now we've been told there's the life raft's been broken out. That we've got one engine that's going out, and we can't fly on one engine. And so he did, and he never turns around again and says, let me give you an update or anything like that. It's like he's the robot. He's just flying the plane until we go down, right? So we're all like, Jesus, this is horrible, man. So it gets dark, and we don't get to Puerto Rico. We're like, what in the heck is going on? We're still flying. Now that engine is starting to, it's making little noises now. And it's like, oh, man. So we see an airport, we get to the tip of the island of Puerto Rico, but instead of going to San Juan, on the far end of the island closest to the United States, there's a strategic air command base in which they have the big B-29, the big bombers that drop the big atom bombs and stuff that sit there all the time. So he doesn't tell us where we are. It's dark. We've been flying. Now we don't know where we are at all. And so he lands the plane. When he lands the plane, I go back there and I flip the little door down because it's a private plane. It has a little door. You screw it down and you hold the rope and you drop the stairs down. And boy, I come off that, man. I'm going to put my feet on dry land, man. We've lived through it. And we're surrounded by guys with machine guns. The whole plane. Must be 20 guys with machine guns. And I'm like, I look up, I go, oh my God. My first thought is, he turned around and we're in Cuba. God almighty. We're landing in Cuba. We're screwed, right?
That's the mid-show break spot in any classic 70s comedy is you get out of the plane that you've lived through the death flight and you're there stands Castro with a machine gun.
There you go. So they truck us in, they put us in this little bus, they truck us in, they put us in a little waiting room, they pull the plane in.
Was he able to radio? Did they know you were coming?
Yes. Yes, but he don't tell us, hey, guys, we're going to land. We're going to make it somewhere. We're going to land at a STAC base or a Strategic Air Command base. He don't say any of that shit. He just lands the plane, right? I mean, he's just a robot, right? He's flying the plane, and he gets us on the ground. So they take us in there. Now it's like 8 o'clock. Now the matches are supposed to start in San Juan. We got half the crew on our plane. So, I'm thinking, what in the hell are we going to do here? So they pulled our plane into a hangar, and they start working on the plane for us. And then they set us in this little room, and they say, I said, hey, can we use the bathroom? And the guy goes, yeah, but he says, we'll go with you. The guys with machine guns follow you into the bathroom, and they watch you piss or whatever you're going to do. And then they come back and sit us down. They put us back on that plane, and about an hour later, we fly to San Juan. Now it's 9:30, close to 10 o'clock, and I'm thinking, well, the show's gone. Hell, the crowd, they must have sent them home. They just told the crowd that, hey, some of our guys are going to be late. And we get there it's old Hiram B. Thorne Stadium was the name of it. It's the baseball stadium.
Yes.
Yeah, old Hiram B. Thorne. We go to the baseball stadium. There's probably 20,000 people sitting there at 10 o'clock at night. Have waited an hour and a half for us to get there. I was like, I've never seen anything like it, man. So, Lester, we complained. We'd been complaining about the planes, and that was it. I mean, we all sat down, the group of us, and said, we're not going to do it anymore. We're not going to risk our lives anymore to take this private plane. We want to fly commercial. So we go in and tell Eddie, and Eddie goes, well, I heard about the deal.
Now, let me add, how did you get back? Once you got there, did you get back on the same plane?
Yes, of course we did. Yeah, we flew out of there that night into Freeport. It's like, it's fixed. I said, well, it's like, how the hell do you know it's fixed? We're going to be at night flying into Freeport. There's no islands hardly at all that have airports on them. So I said, we could be doomed. It was crazy back in those days. The way you risk your life on so many occasions.
So when you got back to Florida, you actually went in and talked to Eddie Graham.
Yeah, went and talked to Eddie, and we complained. The Lester's crew, as I call them, that was always on Lester's plane. We went in there as a group and said, we don't want to do it anymore. We don't want to risk our lives anymore, and the plane needs a lot of work, and y'all need to do something about this. So Eddie started flying. We started all going commercial. Just real quick, this is it's a story that ties in with that. We fly commercial. The next time we fly commercial, we're on the commercial flight, and Dusty and Dick Murdoch are in the back row of the plane. And we have a problem on the plane, right? It's like, the commercial flight. The captain comes on and goes, we have a hydraulic problem or whatever. We can't get the gear down, or, we're like, dog, man. I'm thinking, man, this is horrible. I can't make it here on a private plane. I can't get in here on a commercial one, right? Without having the trouble. So they teach everybody the brace position, and they had to bend forward and the whole damn deal in case they couldn't tell whether the landing gear was locked or not. So they teach everybody the brace position, and then they come back and say, we think we've got the problem solved. We think we've got the problem solved. That don't make me feel too good, but they say we're going to be able to land okay. So we get ready to touch down, and as soon as those wheels hit the runway, now everybody in the back of their mind is still thinking, well, we had a problem. How they know it's fixed? One of those, we're all apprehensive on the plane. And in the very back of the plane, as soon as the wheels get that first little eek, that little squeak, Murdoch and Rhodes scream, brace! The whole plane, every head goes down. The stewardesses are screaming, they're running, the plane is going 200 miles an hour down the runway, and they're already up out of their seats. They're back there cussing them, you crazy bastards! What are you doing back here? Flying, man, experience always.
I think it was a flight landing in Puerto Rico that Grizzly Smith told me that he was on when we went to Louisiana, worked that territory. Grizzly was Watts' road agent, and he never got in a plane. In the Mid-South territory, where sometimes you'd have 4,000-mile weeks in the car, plus 7-8 shows a week, he swore off flying for pretty much, as far as I know, the rest of his life after that in Puerto Rico, landing in like the 70s, I think it was. And the landing gear supposedly wasn't going to come down, or they didn't know. And he looked out and he saw that they had foamed the runway and all this other stuff was going on. And he told me there, he made a promise. If he got out of that plane, he wasn't going to get on another one. And I know for a fact he spent 3 days sometimes in that territory in his car on the road with young guys, he wouldn't charge trans to sometimes driving him, but he was in his car.
Oh, Griz is a funny guy. I mean, Griz was working there in 70s. That's probably the same time frame in which I was making these flights back there, early in the 70s. And Griz was he's a big son of a gun, right? Yeah. I mean, he's a massive dude. And they used to screw with him big time. I remember that they would, when he got in the dressing room at night, sometimes they would turn off the lights and they would goose him, right?
Oh, God, yes.
Oh, my God, he would go nuts. And I would see him, as soon as the light went out, I would start finding me a place to hide, man, because Griz is going to go nuts, man. They start goosing him, and he starts screaming and flailing, and it's like somebody's going to get hurt. He's a great character.
Because Watts made it a fine. Watts made it a fine in his territory because Griz, like you said, he was pretty much 7 feet tall, and especially after he retired, he was 420 something pounds probably, and had these massive hands like catcher's mitts. And when you would stick your thumb up his ass from behind, he would flail and jump and leap. And one night he was talking over a finish with Watts, and somebody gave him the thumb, and he slapped Watts and knocked the piss out of him. And Watts, from that point onward, it was a $50 fine if you were reported for goosing Grizzly Smith. I got him one time and didn't get fined. In this auditorium building where there was a stage and the ring was on a stage and the curtain was behind the ring for the people looking. We were looking out toward the ring and the people. And I said, wow, look at that. And his Griz leaned and peeked through the curtain. I hit him with the thumb and he leaped out in the middle of a match. All of a sudden they saw Grizzly Smith leap out on stage from between the curtains. Whoa!
Oh, man. He's a character. I love old Griz. He is really something.
We hope you've enjoyed this stud story. Find the Ron Fuller Studcast at tnstud.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and everywhere you find your favorite podcast. Now, back to the great Brian Last and the Experience himself, Jim Cornette.
Well, another gripping installment in Storytime with the Tennessee Stud. We should have a graphic made or something of Ron dressed up like Mother Goose, with the kids and the animals around, dealing out the stories of riots in the Bahamas, cutting trees down with people in them, plain life rafts being pulled out and everything. Anyway, we encourage everybody to listen to the Studcast every week on the Arcadian Vanguard Network. Those folks are fancy up there.